Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, author of the newly released book, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. You can get this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Christian book distributors, Walmart, everywhere they sell books. It's now available for you. You'll get it in time for Thanksgiving. Right in the middle of your turkey coma. It's a great read. You'll enjoy that tremendously. But this morning, we're visiting with a return guest, Nina Roesner, who has launched an initiative based on respect. She actually created the Respect Dare, and today we're kind of doing a follow-up piece with her about 101 ways to respect your husband. And she is the creator of the Respect Dare, 40 Days to a Deeper Connection with God and Your Husband. Nina, welcome back to the program.
It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're delighted to have you back. Nina is the executive director of Greater Impact Ministries and has personally applied respect, changed life, and seen applied respect change lives through thousands of real stories in the Daughters of Sarah courses. Frustrated with the media's portrayal of how women are supposed to look, act, and feel, she loves to encourage women to awaken spiritually. She's passionate about assisting others in their journey in life and concerned about the proven negative impact divorce has on children and women's health. She desires to equip women with the communication skills necessary for a successful marriage and help them create balanced lives. This was really why you created the Respect Dare. It was your story, and it became every woman's story in this struggle to look at a physical dynamic which people don't really connect to the creation story. And that is, Genesis we refer to as the story of creation. It's actually the story of separation. Everything in the book of Genesis was separated. Mm-hmm. It was created and then separated. The water was separated from the land. Man was separated from woman. Man was separated from God. Light was separated from dark. Night was separated. Everything was separated, but if we look at this battle in the universe, everything is fighting to return.
Yes.
And so this part of Adam which is taken out to create Eve is fighting to return to join together with this dominion, this mandate given to subdue the earth and to take control and to have authority and to be a part of this oneness. And we talk about it in marriage, but we don't understand the dynamic conflict there is, because you can't get back in.
Oh, I love how you just put that. That's amazing. I've never heard that described that way, and you are absolutely spot on. Even down to our DNA, we are wired to be separate physiologically. I mean, we pair up with someone who is exactly the opposite of us. So, yeah, the word conflict deeply resonates and should be part of every conversation when people are starting to talk about getting married, because that's what it's about. We're designed to be completely opposite and to have that conflict. And the only way that we're going to get through this thing is by deeper connection with God. That is absolutely 100% always the answer is Jesus Christ. And I love how you put that.
You know, people don't understand that Ephesians tell us husbands love your wives, wives respect your husbands. Mm-hmm. Now, I've done so much marriage counseling, and it's always, I'd respect him if he deserved it. I respect him if he did the things he was supposed to. If he was the man that he said he was. And what my takeaway from all of this is that men work harder to win the heart of the one they love than they do to keep the heart of the one they love. And the things they did to be the man of God, the man of faith, the man of righteousness, the man he claimed to be, he stops being because he's now won the prize. And it's the complete opposite. It should be undersell, over-deliver, then oversell and under-deliver. And we understand that in the natural, but why don't we grasp that in the supernatural?
Yeah, I love that you're talking about this. For men, I don't speak to men, but you do. Very clearly, men can hear that from you. There's definitely a lot of truth to what you just said. There's also the element of the wife not staying connected with God such that she can see what she has and be thankful for that. We start criticizing, we start wanting more, we buy the lie of the culture and want the Disney marriage, or, Prince Charming, sweep me on my feet every day. I'm sorry, but the dishwasher needs to be emptied, and life happens, and it's not always some rock and roll show. So we get caught up in the lies of the culture. We have these expectations, and really we should be looking for fulfillment in our relationship with Jesus Christ, and doing life with this person who's trying to do the same thing, instead of judging each other. And that's where things start to go haywire.
I love the book on the love languages that explains some of the ways we have communication issues. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Yeah. Explores the differences. John Trent, his idea of a heart shift, that we drift. We start out navigating the right way, but then we drift and we don't correct our course, and we wind up in a place that we don't expect, and we wake up and go, how did this happen? How did we get here? This wasn't the plan.
Right.
You have taken an approach based on experiences in your life, in your marriage, in your ideals, and hearing your words and how you were communicating, that gave you pause to go deeper and issue a respect dare to yourself. You dared yourself.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a response to God, who was challenging me to go deeper with him. I think we all want so deeply the connection with him. We ache for it, and we get caught up in looking for that in other people. And so when I had this, I don't know, I was probably married for about 5 years. I had this middle of the night moment where I came downstairs and felt led to open up the Gospels, and just saw everything in a whole new light. And I wept for probably a good hour, just overwhelmed with what Jesus Christ did for me on the cross. And I realized that if I had been the last person on the planet, or the only person on the planet, he still would have done that for me. It was just this, I couldn't contain it. I couldn't comprehend it. And in that moment, I also remembered the scripture from Isaiah, where he's saying, who shall I send? Who will go for us? And I told him, I'll do anything you want me to do. Send me, I'll go. And here I am. He challenged me to figure out, what does this look like in your marriage? What does this look like in your parenting? What does this look like in your friendships? And the respect dare itself, most of the stories are mine, about probably 2/3 of them. The other ones come from our class members, but they're painful walks through what does it look like to do what God asks you to do when you don't know what that's going to look like, the outcome, when it's scary, when it's hard. And then how does that end up blessing us and the people around us? It's huge. It's been incredible as a journey.
Well, in this journey, you have now 5 years since the Respect Dare came out. And you have incredible stories of life-changing events in marriages being transformed because of this. The word says we are overcomers by the word of our testimony and the blood of the Lamb. Share with our audience, if you will, maybe one or two stories that reinforce that this Respect Dare concept And then really the I refer to it as the ADD version of the respect there.
Yeah.
This is the how to and the why to and the theology behind it. And this is, all right, 101 ways, number one, and check it off. Number
Yeah.
two, and check it off.
Yeah.
So it's a companion to it, but it makes it easier. It is the tool that I need to keep tucked in my nightstand. When I wake up in the morning, not me as a wife, but you to our female audience. One, refrain from interrupting him in conversation. Research shows that men interrupt to take control in conversation while women do it to empathize. Well, okay, here's a tip, a tool.
Yeah.
But the respect there is 5 years old, and you've had some great breakthroughs. Share one or two of those with us, if you would.
Oh, I have a class online called Strength and Dignity, and in that class, we take women who have come to us saying, you know, I've done everything and I can't change my marriage. My marriage is a mess. And, you know, it's always interesting because they want to change their husband, really. And unfortunately, a lot of these women are in situations where they're being verbally abused or they are suicidal. And it's very, very sad, the discouragement. They love God so much. And I had a class member, I'm going to call her Eileen, just to call her something right now. And because we protect the identities of the women, it's all confidential. She came to us and she said, you know, I can't do this anymore. I've done, you know, I've gone to all the conferences, I've read all the books, I've had it. I don't know what to do, but I can't get divorced because I love my husband, I love my God, and I love my husband, and I love my kids, and I'm not going to do this to them. What do I do? And she ended up in our class, and they'd been married for 40 years. And she was wise enough to realize that even after that long, that divorce would have a huge impact on her adult children. You know, because we can still be wounded emotionally, no matter what age we are. So she takes the class, and this is before she was reading the Respect Dare. The first thing we needed to do with her was keep her from killing herself, right? And so we helped her remember who she was in God. We helped her understand that she needed to have respect for herself. One of the sad things in a number of Christian cultures around the world, honestly, is that women take on this, it's really a pendulum swing, black and white thinking kind of thing. I'm either king of the hill, you know, I'm either in charge of everything, or I'm a doormat maid. And so when they are over here, they realize that this doesn't work either. And they do these really unhealthy things in the name of service and sacrifice and all that, but really they're just frying themselves. They don't rest, they don't take care of themselves. Well, she was over here and had been for a good probably 10, 15 years. And that was one of the reasons she was suicidal, is because she felt like she was doing everything that she could, and it wasn't enough. And she was doing a lot, but she was doing things that were enabling people to stay weak and immature, if you know what I mean,
Yes.
her kids included. So what happened was we helped her regain her strength, and we did helped her realize that it was okay to rest. And then we helped her walk through the Respect Dare, and she realized that she had also become verbally abusive in her marriage, that psychologists call this reactive abuse, where she was speaking back to her husband in ways that were really, really disrespectful and injuring him and hurting him. And then God opened her eyes and showed her that he was as wounded as she was, and that he didn't know what to do either to fix their marriage. And so they had this really tender moment where they connected over not knowing, and that intimacy started to come back. So that's just neat, because her life was saved, and so was her marriage.
It's wonderful and powerful. I don't think people realize that 70% of divorces are now initiated by women.
Yeah.
things are eroding at an alarming rate.
Yes.
And the loss of respect, the lack of respect, and it certainly doesn't absolve men in any way,
No.
because they're not doing their job as the spiritual head of the household. But what's interesting is Scripture actually talks about that a woman comes to faith, or is a woman of faith, and her faith becomes amplified, and she gets fully engaged, and her husband's not. And Scripture actually say, don't get rid of him. You
Right.
may be the very reason that he comes to faith.
Yeah.
And so I struggle in trying to counsel people, because there's the husband who's just not doing what he's supposed to do. There's no question he's not doing what he's supposed to do. But as spouses, we're not judge and jury.
No.
We're supposed to be working on our relationship with God, and when we put that burden that they need to be our all in all, they need to be filling all of our needs, we don't have room in our life for God, because we're too angry with our spouse, we're too consumed with it, and we're thinking so much about it that the enemy has grabbed hold, because that bitter root is taking hold. So what do we do? What do we do as a way of encouraging? And I think the bottom line to your message is, it's not just to respect there because Scripture says, wives, respect your husband. You'll encourage your husband through respect. You'll elevate him and lift him up through respect. And do any of us really deserve any good treatment from anybody?
No. I don't know about you, but the more I come to know Jesus Christ, the more I realize just how far away from being Jesus Christ I am. We are not judge and jury. That's God's job, and yet we think we are. And women are wired to be moms, right? So we'll nurture and we'll tell these little people what to do, and we do a pretty good job at that. Unfortunately, that controlling behavior slides over into our other relationships, and that is the opposite of respect, is trying to control and be directive in our communication. God wired us to be helpers, and it boggles my mind. So many women take that as a derogatory term, as if it means the maid or something. And really, if you think about it, it's an incredible, prestigious, just beautiful name for women. I mean, who do you go to when you need help? Somebody who does a thing better than you do, or has skills that you don't. And I think God wired our brains to have these connections between the right and left side, more so than men's do. Not that men's brains are worse or whatever. They have this incredible ability to focus that we don't. But we have access there in a way that allows us to see a big picture, where sometimes our husband only sees a small part. How we go about interacting and being helpful, though, really, really matters, because it's disrespectful to say, well, if you do that, you know that this bad thing's going to happen. If you buy this car for him, you know he's just going to be stupid. Versus asking a question, saying, well, I'm wondering how that applies with, his natural tendency to be a little bit risk-taking. Do you think that we should be concerned about that? Versus being, oh, you're so stupid, how could you not think of that? Women are very condescending and critical oftentimes in their communication, because they look at men. Well, one of the reasons I've seen is that they look at men and they think that men think they're better than women, or there's this negative attitude there, and so they're trying to one up, and it just doesn't work. We don't have to do that. True confidence and true self-respect isn't something that needs to be fought for or purposely demonstrated. It shows up in our loving attitude to just want to be helpful and to be kind and gentle, loving to somebody else. And that, I think, is at the essence of respect, is, do we have an attitude of of help and admiration for this beautiful creature that God made? Or do we choose to think we're better and be critical and point out what's wrong, which is a miserable environment for all of us and not healthy for children either?
You know, it's coming to the point where people don't understand this concept of called to be a helper. The actual Hebrew word is ezokenegdo, which is helpmate, which is to be at one's side. It is not a behind, it's not in front, it's not on top of, it's not below, it's to be at one's side. I think about, I'm single, but I have a very, very close female friend who is that. She is a very close friend, confidant, and there's not a romance, there's a friendship. And she's single and I'm single, and we become helpmates to each other, filling in the blanks of things that she can't do, or logic or reason that is outside of her expertise, and in my case, logic and reason, which is outside my expertise, because God says two heads are better than one. And I'm in the middle of doing a small remodel of my house that I bought, and I have a contractor that the job was a 2-day job. He's there today on day 10.
Oh.
Now, I went to him the other day and I said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go in your truck, and I want you to come to me with an answer as to why I should not terminate you. One answer, you come with just a complete, I want one answer as to why I should not fire you. And he came to me and he said some unintelligible words that were absolutely the most unconvincing argument of all. And I said, all right, you have just proven to me that you absolutely deserve to be fired. But I didn't deserve entrance into the kingdom of heaven. And I don't have a good argument in my own defense for how God has been so gracious to me. I said, so if I'm going to be a man of God, I have no choice but to allow you to continue, even if the end result is less than my desire, because you're 9 days into this and it's already less than my desire. However, do I treat you with respect and dignity? Do I beat you down and tell you that you... No. I give you an opportunity, I extend grace to you, and will say to you, because of this, hopefully you will see the grace and mercy of God. You will pass it on, and you will never do this to anybody else ever again. And I closed the door. Gave him the chance. I think we tend to treat our spouses as contractors. And we look at the job, and the job's not being done on time. The job's not being done to our specifications, and we treat them as if they're employed as our contractors. And, but you said, you told me, and this becomes part of that conflict, and it does tear away at a man's dignity. It does tear away at his ability. And then he gives well, maybe you'd be better off without me. Maybe I'm just not. And then all of a sudden you get into this introduction to separation as opposed to unification. And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back from break, are things that we can do when we recognize that from a spouse, wife, because you're coming from the woman's perspective, when you realize that you've been talking to your husband like he's a contractor and he's not the man that God provided for you, and that we're not seeing them through the lens of God, we're seeing them through the lens of promises, productivity, we're looking at them in the complete natural, and in the natural, they don't measure up to our standards, and therefore we walk in great disappointment. We're talking with Nina Roesner, author of 100 Ways to Respect Your Husband, creator of the Respect Dare, and someone who has made this personal journey personal and is now shared transparently with you, our audience. We're going to dig deeper into this when we come back from break. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com www.inbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're visiting with Nina Roesner, author of and creator of the Respect Dare, 40 Days to a Deeper Connection with God and Your Husband, and the companion handbook, 101 Ways to Respect Your Husband. Nina, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here.
Nina, you encourage readers to avoid extremist thinking. And especially in today's environment with jihadis, with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda, extremists, we seem to have gone the route that everybody's become an extremist in their own way, and this identity, I matter more than all other things matter. So that too is an extremist form of thinking. How do you define it, and what do we do about it?
There's a happy, holy, healthy middle ground where our identity comes into play. There's the side that's I'm everything, I'm all that, and cater to my needs, which is narcissism. That's what psychology labels that. And then you've got the I'm worthless, trod upon me because I don't deserve to breathe, and, all those kinds of things. In the middle is, you know what, I don't deserve heaven. I'm a sinner. I'm also a saint. And Jesus, wow, what'd he do for me? And I'm loved. And the healthy, holy middle there is a good place because it allows us to make mistakes and not be destroyed by them. It allows us to make mistakes and apologize for them. It allows us to let others be who they are and make mistakes as well. And so there's no striving for perfection or beating ourselves down. It's just a place of healthy, godly confidence, not in what we can do, but in who God is and what he's done in the past and what he's going to do, and that we don't have to worry. So much of our esteem, if you will, and I hate that word because it's so built upon externals. If we perform well, we feel good. If somebody says something nice, we feel good. Well, the problem is that we can't be a rock star every single day, and we're going to make mistakes. And performance isn't there, or we hurt somebody's feelings, then do we not have a good understanding of who we are? Do we lose who we are in that? No, we're still the same. The reality is that this is just life, and we need to be comfortable in who we are and know who that is, and know that no matter what I do, I'm still loved, and I'm to do my best to lean on God every moment of the day because he knows the right answer. And when things go badly, even if I'm doing what God asked me to do, when they go badly, it doesn't mean that it didn't go the way it was supposed to, or the way that he's not surprised, right? And it may have been the way that it was supposed to go, and he knew that, and I'm labeling it as bad. So many good things come out of what we label as not good. And I'm not saying that we should go pursue bad things and not care about obeying God, create more bad things. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if we're plugged in and living life for the audience of one, if Jesus Christ is the one who we live for, the one who we interact with daily, the most important person and God in our life, if he is the one, then we don't have the stress of figuring out how do I feel good about myself, because it's not a thing. It just isn't.
So how does this translate into, I don't want to say affirmations or confirmations, but in respectful communication, how do we, as spouses, and in particular, we're talking to the wife, how does she turn the conversation? How does she, because there's triggers. We all have these buttons. Our children can't remember where they put their shoes,
Right.
but they remember where our buttons are because they push them
Yeah.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, spouses are like that as well,
Yeah.
and wives have triggers, husbands have triggers. So when we have a hair trigger, which means the minute I hear it, see it, or feel it, I have a reaction to it. That's often the time in which the dig, the critique, and the "you'll never change, it'll never get any better, look, there you did it again," and all the words of Jesus, "How often shall I forgive my brother for the same offense? 70 times 7. That's actually one time every 3 minutes for the same thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, you might as well just go ahead and forgive them completely, because you got to
Right.
do it every 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What tools do we use to change that dynamic? Because it is a dynamic. It's as if there's a script and there's roles to play, and I am cast in that role, and if I yield, I'm going to lose the whole thing. If I relent, I'm giving up that thing that has bothered me for so long. It's never going to happen. I'm just going to have to live with it and settle with it and sweep it under the carpet, so that the carpet becomes so big that I'm going to have to put flashing lights, speed bump, right in the middle of my home because I've swept so much under the carpet.
Yeah.
How do we,
Oh, golly.
what do we do?
Well, first of all, there needs to be an awareness. Yeah, I love that term that you use, triggers and hair triggers. Those are cues about our own woundings. So our reaction to somebody else is going to be based on, am I healthy enough here? Or is something that is in my past that's not been dealt with, that's already under a carpet, if you will, being ignited because I haven't dealt with that and I'm too sensitive here. Ideally, and this is going to sound radically different than most of the things that people ever hear said about relationships, but ideally, in a perfect world, when someone says something that would normally set someone else off, I mean, maybe it's an accusation, like he says, you betrayed me when you talked to the counselor about our issue with sex, okay? And it hurt me, and you betrayed me there. And in her head, she may be going, okay, he's trying to help us, so he needs to know that. But in an ideal world, she's not even going to get defensive or have that thought. She's going to be able to see that her husband's wounded. And she's going to, and this is the thing that most of us miss. There's two things going on. When we get it right, we don't even notice that we get it right because there's no big emotive event, right? Our amygdala doesn't register that. It's just we have peace, and we don't, do jumping jacks over peace with excitement, right? We just have peace. But what happens when we have women crave intimacy with their husbands, what we don't know, what we don't understand, is that we can have intimacy with our husbands even when the issue that he has is with us, even when he's hurt by something that we've said or done, and even when we think he's completely wrong about that. The intimacy that we crave is right there in those moments. But instead of embracing that and being emboldened by the Holy Spirit to walk into that and say, oh gosh, you know what? I see that really did hurt you. Tell me more about why this hurts you so much that I shared about our difficulties in the bedroom. Tell me more about that. Instead, the average woman's going to go, well, I did it because she's going to have a defensive response. But there's an opportunity there. And if we can step into that, then we can connect at a whole different level with these wonderful men and help them deal with some of the things that they're wounded from. And we can both heal. Does that make sense? So when we get that reaction, it's a cue.
It's so interesting that you bring up this dialogue of recognizing that something hurts somebody. I always go back to thinking about what happens when you go to the doctor with a pain. And you walk in and you have this general pain. If you knew what it was, you'd tell them and say, "Doctor, it hurts over here on my right side."
Yeah.
So he says, "Okay, lay down, let's examine you." And he takes his two hands and he starts pressing, and he'll press and say, "Does that hurt?" And you go, "No." He goes, "Does that hurt?" "No." "Does that hurt?" And you cry out in pain. What does the doctor always do?
He's asking you questions. He's looking.
He always presses that place again.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
True. Yeah, right after.
Right after, he does it again. And you want to slug him. "Didn't you just ask me if that hurt?" And I said, "Yes." "Why are you pushing on it?" The first time he does it to determine where it hurts. The second time he does it to determine why it hurts. And God uses things of the natural to reveal supernatural truths to us. When we have these triggers, when we have these responses, God wants us to stop and say, "Ouch, that hurt."
Yeah.
And then God wants to press on it a second time and say, "Now I want you to go over and be quiet and sit in the corner and figure out, why did that hurt?"
Yeah.
Whose voice are you hearing when your husband says this to you? It's not this man who adores you and promised to love you and care for you and protect you. You're hearing somebody else's voice. Whose is it?
Yeah.
Well, it was the uncle that molested me. It was the father that said I'd never amount to anything. It was the mother that told me I was too fat, too short, too tall, too this. It was my coach. It was my pastor. It was my girlfriend. It was my old boyfriend. It was this person. All of a sudden, and we get to take and we get to do something so amazing. Okay? These lights, thousands of watts of lights in this studio. When the program's over, we unplug the lights. We remove their source of power. And this is exactly what your respect there causes people to do. You have to examine the circumstance, and then you have to remove its power in how you respond. Scripture says a kind word turns away wrath. It takes two people to argue.
Yep.
You can't fight with yourself. So when we examine this, we have to learn, and we're again addressing wives in this respect there. We learn that their habits are formed in between 21 to 40 days is really kind of a habit forming, and your respect there is a 40-day devotional. And what's interesting is you start with a connection with God, and then it translates to your connection with your husband. There's a lot of angry men out there. There's a lot of really angry women.
Yep.
I hear all the time, there's no good men. All men are liars. All men are cheaters. All men are this and all men are that. Years ago, I was questioning why God described a Proverbs 31 woman, but he never described what the requirements of a Proverbs 31 man was in order to help create, enable. And so there's a book out. And so I went out and I read this book. What does God require of a man? Because you have to be pretty secure to put your wife out in the marketplace. You got to be pretty secure to let people walk by and compliment her, and to have one-on-one dialogue with her without being jealous, being flipped out that a man's talking to the marketplace is filled with men and women. This is a person of respect. How does that happen? How does a husband encourage? Well, how does a wife put herself in a position to be encouraged? How does a wife put herself in a position to be elevated to that? we're all instructed to let no unwholesome talk come from our mouths, but only that which is for the betterment, for the uplifting. But we don't put that into practice.
Right.
But your premise is that if the wife, if the spouse would employ words of respect, that it unlocks, it is the secret key to unlocking the floodgates of passionate love, respect, desire, affection, compassion, listening, desire, and that we've been missing it all along because we've been driving this man of the household. We've been missing it all along. Of this is, I'm defined by the work I do. I'm the provider. Okay, I should be right. Look, I bring home the bacon. My wife lives in this beautiful home, but men don't pay any attention to the needs. They're busy flaunting what they've done. Mm-hmm. If there's respect shown, if there are words of encouragement and acknowledgement, I know that if I'm complimented on something, I want to do it again. Because it feels good to get complimented for that. Mm-hmm. So you give us these tools. You talk about this. I think we understand respect, but you introduced us to applied respect. Mm-hmm. How does that work? How does that become active?
Well, I'll give you an example. It's one of my favorite stories. A wife was having, she made dinner every night. Husband comes in. She happened to work part-time too. She came home earlier and, she's making dinner. And he comes in and she says, "Hey, it's good to see you." And stops what she's doing, goes over and greets him. And this is normal routine, right? Every night of the week. So one day she does this and he's just sullen. And she's like, "Well, what's going on?" And he goes, I work really hard all day and I come home and nobody notices. And she tells me, she's like, "Oh, what am I, chopped liver? I stop what I'm doing. I'm making dinner for him." But she was smart in that moment. She says, "Well, tell me more about this." That's my favorite phrase, by the way. Tell me more. It buys you time mentally to not react.
Right.
And it allows you to hear what's behind the words you just heard, because there's always more to it than what you just heard. So he says, "Well, when the kids were little, they used to come running over here and, jump up and down and all that. And everybody's, off doing their homework. And, I come home and nobody notices, it's just you and the dogs." And she's saying to herself, she's going, "Okay, well, I should matter, but I'm not going to do this." And she said, "You know what? I remember that too. That was really, really neat." He goes, "Well, I want everybody to do that now. I missed that. I want that back. And she said, "Okay." And she's thinking, she says to me, I don't know how to get a junior high student and a high school student to stop doing what they're doing and come downstairs and, "Hey, Daddy, it's good to see." She's going, I don't even know what to do with this. But I didn't go there. She said, I asked him, I said, "Tell me what you miss about that." He goes, "Well, they were just so much fun. And I want that back." And she realized he didn't really want the teenagers to come downstairs. What he really wanted was time with his little kids again. He missed his children when they were small. Mm. And she said to him, I can talk to the teenagers about this. I will tell you one thing. I really miss them being little too. It was so much fun, wasn't it? You remember the time we da-da-da-da, and she talks about something else that they did that was fun. And then she says to him, "Do you want me to try to facilitate that for you?" And he looks at her and he goes, "No, that's the dumbest thing ever. They're not going to do that. I don't want that." He said, I just miss them being small. And so the point of that is that respect doesn't go off, react, emote, be selfish. Respect goes, what's more? There's more here. How do I love this person well in this moment? And respect is wisdom, because you are looking for what's underneath the communication that you just heard. And most people are doing their best. They're not trying to hurt the person that they married. They're not intentionally trying to wound somebody. But when they're hurting, when they're missing something, they're not at their best. And so to assume that it's always about us and those words are meant to harm us is really not wise on our part. So to be wise, we want to take a breath, we want to listen better, and we want to empathize where that person is, because in their pain, that's very real. That's their truth that they're operating out of in that moment, and they can't see anything else. And they're not going to see anything else if we react. Well, come on. I mean, grow up. You're not going to, I mean, that's childish that you want. No, that's demeaning. We don't want to be treated like that ourselves. So why would we do that to the person we love the most? Why would we do that?
Do you think that over the years people develop this mentality that their spouse is actually their enemy, their greatest critic, their the one that they go to work and they're admired for their accomplishments, and they're respected, and they're yes sir and no sir, and they have people doing, and then they come home and there's somebody waiting there to point out what they did wrong, or
Right.
and so we've created this dynamic where the two shall become one, but if you divide the one, that's the splitting of the atom. That is nuclear. That causes a tremendous amount of fallout, and that's what we're seeing in these divorce rates. And in essence, what you have done is you've honed in on a critical area of communication, but a way to communicate respectfully. And it does take one or the other to initiate this, and in your case, you are addressing the wife in a critical area, one that God points out is critical. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. And again, God tells us to do something, but He does not give us the list of instructions as to how to do it. That's why we have authors, and we have commentators, and we have people like ourselves to discuss this. So you've put several tools together. First of all, people can find you at your website, which is Nina, N-I-N-A, Roesner, ROESNER.com. There's great resources there. Your speaking engagements, some tools. You can get a copy of The Respect Dare, 40 Days to a Deeper Connection with God and Your Husband, and the ADD Companion Guide, The 101 Ways to Respect Your Husband, which gives you numbers 1 through 100. It certainly lays the foundation. It gives you an introduction. If you want the short course, this is the book for you. The full course, this is the book for you. Nina, what a joy it's been to connect with you again. And as always, you've added great value to the conversation with giving us new insight into how to respect our spouses. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Walker. It's been a privilege to be here.
Thanks so much. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.